Hello and welcome to this edition of Ringside Digest. I'm your host Kirk Day, along with my co-hosts Byrne and Nick Miller. And today is time that we're going to go over our playoffs bracket. In this specific video, we're going to go over the Western Conference one, because if we did the East in the same video, it would be just way too long. So we're just going to go over the Western Conference, and then we're going to go over the finals, as well as just why the Eastern team got there. But if you want to see our East bracket, we're also going to be doing a video on that, just a separate one. That'll be out at the same tonight. I'm not sure which one's going to be coming first. But yeah, and before we get in this video, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content from us, because now that the playoffs are starting, it's getting very, very exciting. There's a lot of stuff going to be going over. We're going to be going over all the games, all the series, up until the finals and afterwards. And it's going to be very exciting. So if you want to see it, make sure to subscribe. And now, without any further ado, we're going to go into the Western Conference playoff predictions that we got. We each got our own bracket of the Western Conference, and we're going to go over it. I'll go with mine first, then Noah, then Nick, just so it's not going to be a cluster of all of them mixed together, and it'll be pretty straightforward. So, without any further ado, again, like I said, now we're going to go to my bracket first. In Series 1, between Colorado and Seattle, I have Colorado winning in 6 games. This one is pretty came down to the last day, I'm pretty sure. I mean, Colorado had to win, and they did. Came down to the last day, so these guys didn't know who their opponents were going to be until the last day. So, I mean, Seattle does score a lot, I'll say that, but they also get let in a lot of goals, which is not ideal against a team like Colorado. As we know, Colorado is stacked up with guys like Mikko Rantanen, Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar. They are so stacked, and you can't let in a lot of goals against a team like that, because I know you score a lot, but the team is very, very good at not letting in goals. Colorado, they're not letting even get close to the net because their goalies aren't the best. I'll say that. That's why I have Seattle winning 2 games out of this, but I still think that Colorado ultimately will come out of this series just not dominantly, I wouldn't say, but I think they're going to win this pretty handedly, this series. I have them at 6, but I could also see it being in 5, maybe even 4, depending on how they come out, because if Seattle's not at the top of their game, they won't go very far in this series. So I have them moving on, Colorado, to the next round. And with our second series, I have Dallas versus Minnesota. Now, this one is probably going to hold a bit of bias by me, but I have Minnesota in 7. Minnesota, when they were out Kaprizov for that month with him gone out for an injury, they played fantastic. They played amazing. Everybody on the team stepped up. You got Matt Boldy. Both goalies in Fleury and Gustafsson were playing absolutely incredible. And it was fantastic. And without Kaprizov, that's very, very big because, he's their best player. And with him gone, they knew they had to step up, and they very much did. Now, near the end of the season, when everybody came back, they slowed down a bit. They dropped down to 3rd in the Central, even though it was still only separated by a few points between all 3 of those teams, Dallas, Minnesota, and Colorado. But if they can get back to that form that they were while Kaprizov was out, I definitely think they could win this series, because Dallas is definitely a tough opponent as well. They're very, very deep on offense and defense, and with Jake Ottinger in net, he's a fantastic goalie. But if Minnesota, and if they can get it back, if they can get back to what they were and add Kaprizov into that, and like Gustav Nyquist, they all coming back from injury, and if they can stay healthy, I think Minnesota could squeak this one out in 7. I could see it going either way, but I think Minnesota could get this in 7. So yeah, I'll say Minnesota moving on to the next round to face Colorado in round 2. Now going on to our next series, I have Vegas versus Winnipeg. In this one, I have Vegas in 6. Winnipeg squeaked into the playoffs. They were very, very close to not making it. It just came down to them and Calgary pretty much, and Nashville. Those 3 teams, but out of those, Winnipeg was the one to do it. And that was most part due to Connor Hellebuyck. He's played fantastic this year, even though the team hasn't been very good overall. But if Connor Hellebuyck is in the playoffs, I think he can definitely do something to get you a win. That's why I have Winnipeg winning 2 games. If Connor Hellebuyck's on his game, it could even be more. You never know. They may win the series. But I think Vegas ultimately just has too much power on offense. You got Jack Eichel. You can go get Ivan Barbashev at the trade deadline. They did stack up. You're going to have Mark Stone back potentially, depending on what happens there. So Vegas is just very, 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 very strong on offense. And as well as Jonathan Quick in net. He's been good in the playoffs in the past. So, if that comes back as well, I think Vegas could take this one in 6. Wouldn't surprise me, though, if it was a bit earlier. Wouldn't surprise me if a bit later, but I'd have Vegas in this one regardless. And with the final series in the first round for the Western Conference, I have the Oilers versus the Kings. And this one, I have the Oilers in 5. I see a lot of people taking the Kings in this series, and I don't know why. I don't know why at all. I don't agree with that whatsoever. The main reason is Connor McDavid is shooting on Phoenix Copley this series, for the most part, from what we know. That's pretty much all I got to say about that. The Oilers are an absolute powerhouse. Matthias Ekholm getting him at the trade deadline. I have the Oilers going far in this, as you can see. I mean, and we'll get to the finals when we get to them for my bracket. But yeah, so all of Oilers moving on this one in 5 games. Now going to our first matchup in the second round, I have Minnesota versus Colorado. Now I'm sure many of you are questioning why this one is Minnesota's highlighted to go on to the next round. But once again, I'm saying this. I think Minnesota's goalies this year, Philip Gustafsson and Marc-Andre Fleury. Philip Gustafsson is in line to start for the playoffs. I don't know if that'll stay because we know Marc-Andre Fleury's had a few, what should I say, difficulties in the playoffs on occasion in recent years. A couple mishandlings of the puck and stuff, so we're going to try to avoid that in this. And if I'm assuming Philip Gustafsson will start. So if he can play, like I said, they're healthy, Kaprizov's back. In Colorado, Gabriel Landeskog is not returning to the team for the playoffs. He's not coming back. He's going to stay out. He's done. And Colorado's goalies, like I said, it's not the best. So if Minnesota gets that full offense out there, they play good defense. Brock Faber coming up. Hopefully John Klingberg gets on the offensive side a bit more than he already has, which I'm saying he's been all right with it so far, but just a bit more. I do think Minnesota can beat Colorado in this one. I'm going to say 6 or 7 games once again. I can see Minnesota going 7 again, but I could also see 6. I know Colorado's good, and Minnesota's defense will have to take a big step to be able to stop Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, and all them, but I think Minnesota can do it. And with the second round final matchup between Vegas and Edmonton, I got to take Edmonton. Vegas is very, very good, but Edmonton, they just have been insane since they finished the trade deadline. They've been so good. They have, Connor McDavid getting 150-plus points. Matthias Ekholm getting added at the trade deadline was huge for them. Huge. It was very, very good, and I think that's capable of stopping Vegas' powerful offense, and McDavid just let him go to work. I think that'll put them into the Western Conference Finals versus Minnesota. And now with the Western Conference Finals, like I said, Edmonton versus Minnesota. I think this is where Minnesota's run ends. I gotta say it. I think Edmonton can definitely pull this one out. I mean, McDavid is just such a tough challenge to stop on, even if you have the best defense in the league. It's just such a big challenge. I don't even know what I can say. I don't think Minnesota will be able to stop him. I don't think anybody can stop him for that fact. Maybe might be a hint for what's coming next, but I think Edmonton gets this one done, maybe 5 or 6. It's just I think Minnesota after 14 games or 13 games, whether they'll play 7 in the next round or the previous round or 6, I think they'll be exhausted, and McDavid will be able to just run right through them. Even if Minnesota's offense gets hot, it's just going to be a tough challenge for Minnesota to stop that team with McDavid, Draisaitl, they've been insane. And with that, going to my Stanley Cup Finals, I have the Edmonton Oilers versus the Boston Bruins. And if you want to see the Boston Bruins, how their path was on my bracket to get here, just go and have a look at the Eastern Conference video. We'll be doing that one as well. And you'll see the whole bracket of how their trip here was. But basically in the finals, I have Edmonton Oilers beating the Boston Bruins. I'm going to say in 6 games. We know Boston's had their incredible goaltending season this year. Incredible season, the best season of all time, statistics-wise. But I think Edmonton will just be able to do it under pressure. A Canadian team in the finals, especially, and going to be at home, both home teams, I think, in this series will have an incredible boost of fan base with them for this. But I think the Edmonton Oilers, having McDavid, I think they'll have Canada on their whole side as well. I think Edmonton gets this one done. And at the tiebreaker, at about 29 goals in the NHL Bracket Challenge, I think it's going to be pretty low scoring because we know Allmark is good, but you have McDavid on the other side. And, you got Pastrnak on Boston, but I think Edmonton will squeak this one out in 6. So, guys, what do you think? What do you think about my bracket? Let me know.
I like it.
The
Minnesota one, the Minnesota little run there. I don't know about that, but
yeah, I had to throw a bit of bias in.
I do have a little bit of faith in Minnesota, but maybe not as much as you do.
No, I don't even know if I have that much faith in them yet, but that's what I'm hoping for. So, all right, Noah, why don't you go ahead with yours?
Sure. All right, so with my first series here, I have Colorado in 6 against Seattle. Matty Beniers, Jared McCann, Jordan Eberle, Vince Dunn, all phenomenal years, all great numbers this year. But, matched up against guys like McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, they don't stand a chance. So that's why I have Dallas. Seattle. Moving on to the next series, Dallas in 7. Like you said previously there, Kirk, Minnesota stepped up without their their big guy there in Kaprizov. They're going to give Dallas a series for sure. Guys like Hintz, Robertson, Bane, Sagan, they've all been there before. They've all been on that deep playoff run. So I think they have the edge. So that's why I have Dallas in 7. Moving on there to the third one, Vegas in 6 over Winnipeg. Winnipeg just barely squeaked into the playoffs. I also think Hellebuck could be an X factor in this series. He gets hot, he gets on his game. I think could be very well a different result for this series. Edmonton in 5. I'll keep it short and sweet. McDavid, plain and simple. He's going up against that King defense. It's game over. I also think the reason why I have it in 5, I think Phil Deneau is going to be out there against Connor McDavid for a majority of this series. And if for those who aren't aware, when Phil Deneau played Austin Matthews there in when Montreal played the Leafs, Austin Matthews had 1 goal. So I think that's why I think LA maybe gets 1 game, but it's not going to be enough to shut down McDavid. And then moving on now to the second round, Colorado versus Dallas. I got Dallas getting this one, or taking this one. Previously stated by Kirk there, no Gabriel Landeskog. He's done for the year. That's going to be a huge factor. I also give Dallas the edge here because of goaltending. Ottinger has been great all year, and I think getting down to it, I think he's better than Alex Georgiev, plain and simple. Vegas Edmonton in that next semifinal, Western Conference semifinal. The fact that the Oilers have 3 100-point players, that's what gives Edmonton is so much better here. Leon, Nuge, and Nugent Hopkins, that is, and I'm even going to say Ekholm, all amazing seasons, and I think they're an awesome supporting cast for Connor McDavid. Then in the conference final, I got Dallas Edmonton, taking the same route as Kirk. Edmonton is just simply too good here. Dallas is going to give them a hard time with Robertson, Hintz, Ottinger, but once again, Connor McDavid, plain and simple. And then in the final there, this is going to be a phenomenal final. Teams are going to be taking shot for shot, so I think I have it going 7. But, the X factor here, the defense. Nurse, Ekholm, Bouchard against Fox, Trouba, Condré Miller. A bit of a hot take here. I'm taking Edmonton's defense. I know that's a little bit of a spicy one, but that's why I have Edmonton winning, and I have Edmonton hoisting the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I gotta say that's not a bad situation. Like I think I can agree with you on most of it, except Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's 100% bias. It's nothing other than that. But I can see, Robertson, Hintz, like those guys in Dallas are absolutely fantastic. And
Yeah.
I do like what you have going on in the Stanley Cup final. I can also see the Rangers. I got a bit different, though, just a little sneak peek for next video. But, yeah, I can see, I think Edmonton is a safe bet, and Rangers are a safe bet as well in the finals. And I think that'd be a very, very good series to watch. I got to say.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. All right, Nick, you ready for yours?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, to start off, I've got Colorado and Seattle. I've got Colorado in 6. I think Seattle had a really good year. Like, their leading point scorer, 70 points, Jared McCann. But it was really important to keep Justin Hall, though, right? Anyway, I think Colorado just has too much star power and the better goalie in this series. I believe Seattle's had issues with their goaltending all season. I think, like you said, Kirk, they score a lot of goals, but they also let up a lot of goals. So it's going to be interesting to see what Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar have to do on that defense there. But moving on to the next series, I also, like Kirk, have Minnesota beating Dallas in 7. This is, I think it's a hot take because Dallas definitely has a little bit more depth than Minnesota, but I think Minnesota just has that toughness factor. And they've also played together as a team. They've gelled really well as a team when Kaprizov was out especially. And now you're adding a superstar player to what was already a very good, well-oiled machine, we'll say, for Minnesota. So I think that might get them over the top in that series. The addition of John Klingberg as well from Dallas, I think, is also another factor. And Philip Gustafsson is going to depend a lot on him if he's going to play the way that he can, because we know Jake Ottinger is going to play the way that he can. But we're just waiting to see now if Philip Gustafsson can really prove himself here in this series. Moving on to the next series, I've got Vegas in 5 over the Winnipeg Jets. This should be self-explanatory. Sorry, Jets fans, but you really shouldn't be here. After the last 2 months, Winnipeg's been slumping. They obviously won the games they had to win around the end of the season, but I just don't see it happening here in this Vegas series. I think Vegas has got it in 5, but like Kirk said, I've got Connor Hellebuck maybe stealing a game, maybe two, but I think Vegas is just a very well built team, more so than the Jets. Um, yeah, that's all I really have on that one. Edmonton over LA, another self-explanatory series, and I really don't understand why people would ever take LA in this series. Now that might come back and bite me in the end if LA ends up beating Edmonton in this series, but I've got Edmonton in 5. I think there's too much star power on the Oilers side to be able to be shut down by what the Kings have. Some really good defensive forwards. They got some decent defense. Maybe they upgraded the defense a little bit from last year with Gavrikov now. But then again, the goaltending, not that Stuart Skinner is like some kind of all-star goalie. He's needing to prove himself still, but the the Kings have Phoenix Copley. That's an issue. That you can't go into a series against Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, and all those players with the seasons they've had this year and start Phoenix Copley and expect to win. That's all I've got to say about that. Moving on to the second round, I've got Colorado beating Minnesota. This is where I have Minnesota's luck running out, Kirk. I see too much experience on the Colorado side of things. Again, too much star power, and star power is not all what gets it done in the playoffs. But we're also talking about one of the best built decors in the league here in Colorado. I know Alexander Georgiev is not exactly. I don't consider Georgiev to be as good as what his numbers say because of the decor built in Colorado. But if it works, it works. So I have them moving on over Minnesota in that series. Edmonton and Vegas, I have as the other second round matchup. I think Vegas could win this one, but I really have Edmonton just being able to overpower Vegas with their offense. I know Jonathan Quick has played well since he got to Vegas, but at some point, I mean, you just got to realize Connor McDavid is better than everybody else, and he will find a way to beat that defense. There will be a way. If Edmonton gets a power play, Leon Draisaitl is going to feed off of that. If they get a couple power plays a game, Leon Draisaitl is going to be licking his chops over there on the right circle. So I think if Vegas limits the penalties and they play a good structured defensive game, they could. But at the same time, I think Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and that side is just too good. I think Matthias Ekholm is going to be able to stop a lot of the chances that Vegas is going to have on transition into the zone. He's been very good at intercepting pucks for them. He's been a rock there on their defense, easily their best defenseman right now. I think that was a phenomenal move for Edmonton bringing him in at the deadline. And now, the conference final, where I have the defending champs being dethroned by the Oilers in that series. I think that, this is a series where you have 2 or 3 star players on each team. Like, you've got stars everywhere, like Bryn stars everywhere. Like, it's McDavid versus McKinnon. We got this in the conference final last year. I think Edmonton upgraded their defense. I think Edmonton upgraded their goaltending. I think Colorado got worse in some spots, which is what I don't think they have the depth they used to on forward, which I don't think they'll be able to score as many goals for that reason, and the fact that Edmonton upgraded their defense and goaltending. I think this year Edmonton overpowers them just a little bit. And now moving on to my Stanley Cup finals, I have the Bruins and the Oilers in there, and I have the Oilers taking it home. I think in this series, I've got it going 7 games because you've got arguably the best player to put on skates, the most talented player we've ever seen to put on skates, and his team versus the best regular season team of all time. And you've got a lot of experience on the Bruins side of things. You've got a lot of talent on the Oilers side of things. You've got a lot of talent on the Bruins side of things. You've got everything everywhere in this series. This series is my dream Stanley Cup final matchup. I don't know, maybe Toronto versus Edmonton and bring a little bit more heat, but in the tiebreaker, some of you might be questioning why I have 49 goals in the tiebreaker, because I know that's a lot. That averages out to 7 goals a game. I'm giving a lot of room for games where you have an 8 goals side for one team or something like that. because as we've seen in the past, it's not always that organized as you might think in the Stanley Cup Finals. There might be one game that gets away from one team or a couple maybe. But I think that the goaltending is really good on both sides so far. Well, we don't know about Stuart Skinner. We hope if you're an Edmonton fan anyway. But Linus Ullmark is going to play good. But at the same time, you have three 50-goal scorers playing in this series. You have two 60-goal scorers playing in this series. You've got two well-oiled machine offenses on both sides. Like I believe Boston has a lot of depth going down their lineup on forward. Edmonton has a lot of depth going down theirs. Plus they have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl up top. So a McDavid versus Pasternak final there would be something to see. Two MVP candidates. But yeah, that's all I've got for my bracket. I've got the Oilers taking it home.
I do agree. We pretty much all have the same brackets with a few differences. I mean, most of the first rounds are the exact same, same different games. But I think this is kind of the way it's going to play out. We kind of got that idea that Edmonton will be going further than the first round.
Yeah, like, a lot of faith in Matthias Ekholm too.
Well, he's been the rock on that team since the trade deadline. I mean, they've had a very good record since then, but I do agree. I do like the brackets that we have. I can see all of them in their own respective way, except yours, Noakes, Minnesota will be going past the first round. But, other than that, yeah, I do completely agree that all these brackets they're very, very good. Definitely a possibility going into these playoffs, for the Western Conference at least. So that's all we got for the Western Conference playoff predictions. We're going to have the Eastern Conference one in a different video. It's going to be the exact same layout pretty much, except it's just going to be the East teams. We're going to give our little thoughts on the final, how they got there, the opponents, and all. Yeah, so if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe and make sure to like this video too, because we're going to be having a lot more playoff stuff coming soon. Starts tomorrow night. It's going to be very, very exciting, and we have some good games coming. So, yeah, that's all we got for this one, and thank you for watching.